Welcome back to the table. Today I have an upcoming game set up already for you. This one is called Monarchs of Camelot from Rhapsody Games. And this takes place in Avalon, the King Arthur's court, Knights of the Round Table kind of mythos, but it's after the death of King Arthur. And you are trying to kind of fill the void that he left behind by putting yourself in power as one of the monarchs. Now, this is an interesting game because this is a game of interweaving narratives. You're going to be playing through a particular scenario or a set of scenarios that are going to kind of guide you through a story where you're going to be making decisions, casting votes, and trying to kind of throw your influence into the ring to guide the story in one direction or the other. Meanwhile, you're going to be on a personal narrative for your character that's going to take you in a variety of different directions. And based on the narrative that's unfolding in front of you and on the narrative of your specific character, you're trying to figure out a way to weave your own personal story through all of that to earn the most prestige and become the monarch at the end of the game. So this is a little bit of a difficult game to talk about without any spoilers. And also it's a game where the actions are going to change, not only just every game you play, but even every scenario that you play through. The game is guided by this giant scenario deck here. And I have set up this book already kind of for the first scenario and unexpected summoning. And that's going to be determined by these setup cards. You're going to have one card that is kind of a narrative card, and even that card might have some decisions. And then you're going to have a setup card that's considered a rules card that's going to actually tell you how to set up this book. And in this particular example, it told me to draw 3 cards from a particular deck. This deck of speaker cards are characters that you're trying to influence over the course of a game because you want their favor or support, or you want them to vote alongside the way that you want to vote. So these are almost like NPCs in these decks that are going to be manipulated by the players or negotiated with by the players by taking actions over the course of the game. This particular scenario told me to draw 3 Knights of the Round Table. So I randomly drew 3 of these knights. And you'll notice each one of these knights brings their own action into the game. So we already have the first example of some unique actions. In addition, each location, and this is the throne room, is going to have particular actions for the 4 playable characters. So if you are playing a particular character, for example, I have Lancelot in front of me, we have Guinevere over here, we have Lady Nimue, and we have Oberon, Lord Oberon over here. So these are the 4 characters you can play. And notice that if you're in the game as that character, you're going to have some specific actions. These are called peril actions that only you can take. The last set of actions that are going to be brought in randomly are based again on the characters that you're playing. Every character is going to bring their own additional setup cards. Now you'll see on either side of the storybook, I have these setup cards already kind of in play. And these are going to be based again on the characters. Some of these setup cards are going to be very specific for that one particular character, but a lot of these can actually be interacted with by a lot of different characters. For example, this one here, the Collector's Guild, allows you to collect these items. Players can now come and collect those items, or you have this rune stack that's added in here. You can then collect those runes. Each one of these cards is going to give you something specific that you want to do, but all of these text boxes represent actions that can be taken. So we have actions from the speakers, the peril actions from the location, the action from all the different cards that are going to be out, and then each scenario is also going to give you additional actions you can take. And the cards that you play in front of you are going to give you some actions you can take. Now, we are always going to start with this Royal Dungeon card, no matter the setup. This one is always in play, but the rest of these cards that are out, and I have this set up with every character, so this is kind of a 4-player game, and you'll see that appear on this tracker as well. This is what's going to track the 3 different stats of your character and the time. Each scenario is going to have a specific amount of time that will change over the course of the game. And your main goal here is to gain the most prestige, but you might have happiness that changes and you might have health that changes. Happiness is basically your turn order. You're going to go in that order, taking all of the actions. Now, when it's your turn, you're going to take as many actions as you can take. Actions have costs and there's different resources you can spend. There's gold and there's magic that you're going to be using to pay for certain costs. And then there are some specific tokens to you. You have advisors, you have knights, and you have spies. And some of these tokens are going to be required to spend to do some of these specific actions as well. In addition, some of these actions are going to require you to be higher on one of these specific tracks. So yes, there is quite a bit that you're going to have to think about on each one of your turns, but when it is your turn, you can, like I said, do any number of actions, but you're also playing a card. And this is a core part of the game. You're going to have a hand of cards that you have to manage over the course of a scenario. And each one of these cards is going to present you with actions, but if you notice, each one of these cards is also split in half. And you can kind of see the artwork of the characters kind of a little different on each side. When you play one of these cards, you're going to display it on your character card either to the left or to the right. And this is going to do a variety of different things. For one, it's going to give you some actions. For a second, it's going to potentially interact with the scenario in a different way. But lastly, it's going to take you in a different direction. Each one of these characters has a special role card that's double-sided. As you kind of play these decision cards, as they're called, and you kind of decide which path is my character going to go down. So Lancelot has two paths. They have the Warden and the Vindicator. And each one of these sides is going to help Lancelot complete one of his special goals. He has his quest cards and he has this conspiracy. And Lancelot's going to interact with these cards in different ways in order to score prestige. And based on which one of these sides of the card that you ultimately choose to go into, it's going to change the way that you interact with those cards. It's going to cut off some options and give you more options. Each one of the characters has one of these double-sided cards. So as you play through the game, this is one of the serious choices you have to make, is which direction are you going to go. You get to choose one of these sides when you reach 4 cards played on one side of your character. You're going to take your character card and you're going to replace it with the other version of that card. However, you can race to that. You can try to get that out early, but then you are not only just committing to getting that particular card done, you're also stuck with only playing the right side of your character cards, when more likely, as you're playing these decisions, you need to be looking at the actions as well. And each one of these actions kind of has a thematic tie-in to the different sides of your character as you kind of progress through the game. But if you load up heavy on one, you might be missing out on some of the actions or some of the benefits that you really want on the other. So you really need to decide. That's like the core part of your turn, is deciding which side of this card you're going to play in, and then it's going to give you a variety of different actions. And these actions are going to be instant effects. They're going to be passive effects. You're going to have what they call planned actions, which are actions that you can take on your turn by spending things. And then you're going to have those contested actions I talked about. And those contested actions are things that will trigger if you are the highest on one of these particular tracks, or if you have the most of something. But a lot of these actions are going to be exchanging resources. You're spending resources to get resources, or take specific actions to further your agenda. A lot of the actions are going to interact with these different cards. Like I said, Lancelot has the conspiracy he's trying to solve, or you can go through the investigation. Lady Nimue is trying to gain power and become the Lady of the Lake. Oberon is trying to gain these rune cards to become a rune master, or he can become the dream master. So these are very thematic to the actual myths of King Arthur. But what's really cool, I really like this one. Guinevere, one of her sides is just to get rid of all the suitors. You have these suitors that are going to be kind of limiting you in different ways, and she can take actions to kind of shoo them away, which again, that's very thematic to the court. And then Lancelot has this deck of allies. So you're going to get a lot of different tokens, cards, things that are added into the game. So this is a very modular experience. Every time you play this game, it's going to be different. Even if you are playing with some of the same characters, the scenario setup is going to be different. So you're going to play through a number of rounds. Everyone's going to get to take an action, and then you're going to look back at the card to see if the thing that was required to be done is done. A lot of these cards are going to have very specific end conditions that'll say, if you've done this thing, like this one, for example, says, if there's ever 4 tokens, 1 per player, on any one of these speakers, then we go on to the next decision. And then you're going to have a decision to make. It's going to ask you, do you want to go this way or that way? Every player gets a vote, but then you're going to look at the speakers. The speakers will be able to be influenced over the course of the game, and the rules are going to tell you, like in this case, it says, a knight will support the Pix land. So whichever one of these speakers, now in this case, they're all knights. So if it ends with any one of these knights having support, you know that they're going to automatically give a vote towards that one. But in other scenarios, you're going to have a variety of different characters out. There are 4 different decks in here that represent 4 different factions, and every time you set up, it's going to tell you either to draw very specific characters or to draw a character of that specific faction and fill in one of these speaker slots. So every time you do, if you, for example, finish a scenario, everything that's on there is going to go. It's going to tell you which card to draw. You're going to play through another scenario. You're going to get another setup card, and it's going to tell you to go to a different section of the board. So for this example, now we're moving on to the Outlands. And again, this is going to get a little more complicated as you go. They kind of start you off slow, and then we would set it up and we would continue. And we're going to continue this until one player hits 10 prestige, or if one player's complete decision deck is empty. If a character has played out all of their cards in front of them and has no cards left to draw, then we're going to end the game that way. And if you end the game that way, you're just going to look and see who has the most prestige. So a lot of that prestige is gained during the game. There's not really in-game scoring, but you're going to be gaining, again, from all these different cards. They have different ways of gaining your prestige. Unlocking one of your character sides gets you prestige. So there's a lot of different ways that you're going to be trying to get prestige over the course of the game. Now, the last thing I want to say about this game is this is not multiplayer solitaire. You know what other players are trying to do, and you can foil other players' plots. There's a lot of different ways in these different cards to take actions. For example, the Royal Dungeon, which is out in every single game, allows you to just capture players' tokens. So if they're kind of working on something, you can kind of remove those tokens, or you can influence the speakers in different directions to go against what those characters want. So the more you play this game, playing a specific character, like coming in and playing Lancelot, and then understanding like what Lancelot wants to do and how he kind of plays, means next time if you're coming in as like Guinevere, you already know what Lancelot's trying to do, and you know how you can kind of stop him or get into the things that you need before him. So this is definitely a lot of player interaction, a lot of negotiation when it comes towards deciding where you're going to go at the end of a scenario. You could try to offer favors to other players, like, I'm not going to mess with you if you vote my way. I mean, none of this is like locked into the rules, so there's really nothing, to keep you honest. You can lie and manipulate and say whatever you want to get the vote you need. So that is, I don't want to weigh on that too much because this is not a negotiation game, but I think it's cool that that element even does exist in this game at all. So this is Monarchs of Camelot. This game is coming to crowdfunding soon, so take a look at their crowdfunding page, see what all the final components are going to look like, all the stretch goals, all the excitement that they're going to have in this game. If you're a big fan of Arthurian Legend, or if just the idea of playing such a narrative-driven story game appeals to you, then this might be one that you want to check out. But please, let me know below. Let me know in the comments what you think of this game. Join our Discord where we're going to talk about this game and other hot new games. And until we see you again, make sure everyone has fun at the table. Goodbye.